Alright, it's Mr. Rops here, and we're moving on to the cosine law formula. I just recently did the sine law one, and similarly I could prove for you the cosine law, but I'm just going to give it to you. Here is one version of the cosine law, where I have C, A, and B, and values of my triangle, and here's the second version. If I'm looking for an angle, this one works as well, and this is CAB. This is if I have a side. Okay, the key to this formula is that this squared has to be the same as this angle. So the opposite side and the angle given have to be the same. All right, so if we look at this scenario, before I move on, I can also rewrite this as a squared is equal to c squared plus b squared minus 2ab. So these values are the same, bc, and it has to be cosine of a. Also works with b squared, a squared plus c squared, and so on. So what the letters are don't really matter as long as this side and this angle are the same, and these two sides are multiplied here. Okay, so we have to make sure we use the formula correctly. So if I look at this particular triangle here, which I want to solve, I don't have any letters on here, so let's just make up some letters. I'm going to call it P, Q, and R. Okay, so that means this is little r, this is P, and this is Q. And similarly to the sine law, I'm going to set this up. I'm going to go Q, P, and R. These angles, this is 110 degrees. This is unknown, this is unknown. Q is unknown, little p is 16, and little r is 10. Note I have no matching pairs, whereas back on the sine law I had a matching pair. Okay, so no matching pairs, so therefore I'm going to use the cosine law in this situation. And let's start off with, if I have the angle, I'm going to start off with its corresponding side Q. So I know this is going to be Q because this is my angle Q. So it's going to be Q squared is equal to P squared minus R squared, plus R squared minus 2PR cosine Q. I plug the values in, and Q squared is equal to P, 16 squared, plus 10 squared minus 2 times 16 times 10, the cosine of 110 degrees. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type this straight into my calculator as is, because my calculator can do order of operations, and this is how I find the least amount of mistakes happen. So I'm just going to go 16 squared plus 10 squared minus 2 times 10 times 16 cosine 110. And this is what Q squared is going to be. And then I'm going to take Q, and I'm going to go the square root of this answer. And I get 21.6 centimeters to 3 significant figures. So I know that this is 21.6 centimeters. Okay, so now that I have this, I can move on to find an angle P and angle R. Okay, I'm also going to recommend, when possible, use the cosine law. And though we have a matching pair here, we don't need to use the cosine law or the sine law. We could use still the cosine law. So if we consider that, I'm going to tidy this up a little bit. Let's make some space. If I come along and I can use the other version, the angle part, if I'm going to find angle P, so it's cosine of angle P is equal to, well, here's the key. Here's C, so here's the C squared on this one. So it's just going to be, 10 squared plus the 21.6 squared minus the P squared. That's the key. This one has to be squared and subtracted because it's the last one. And I'm going to divide that by 2 times 10 times the 21.6. Okay, so now to do this though, I'm going to be a little bit more clever. I want to take this value, I want to use all the decimal places because I want my final answer good to 3 significant figures. So I'm going to go back to this number, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to store it. Look at this store button, store it into, see the little green A? That's the alpha A. And so now this value is A, and I'm going to keep all the decimal places for accuracy. And so now if I go to my calculator, go to my calculator now, I'm just going to put this whole part into my, I'm going to go parenthesis 10 squared plus, well, this is my A value, so I go alpha A squared minus 16 squared, close parenthesis, divide by open parenthesis, 2 times 10 times alpha A, close parenthesis. And this is the cosine of P. To find the angle P is just going to be P equals the cosine of this answer here, which is going to be 44.2 degrees. And this is all the work I have to show. I don't have to show any more work than I show it's being plugged into the formula and I get my value. And that is sufficient. Use your calculator to its utmost, please. And then finally get angle R. Well, I know it's going to be 180 minus this angle minus 110, and that is going to give me 25.8 degrees. Okay, so find the missing side, use the cosine law, different versions depending upon what you're looking for. Okay, now we want to solve this triangle. Okay, to solve this triangle, well, again, I'm going to label these different letters. Let's call it A, B, and C. So this is little b, little c, and little a. So angle A, B, and C. And I have side A is 8.3, B is 20, and C is 15. So again, when I look at this, I do not have any matching sides. And so I'm going to take this formula here. I'm looking for the angle, so this is the one that looks for the angle. We have the formula. So if I want to start with angle A, that means if this is A, that value has to be A. So I'm going to say cosine of A is equal to, well, this is the minus, this is going to be A squared, the 8.3 squared. And the other values can just be put in here, over 2 times 20 times 15. Plug this into your calculator, and then you will get your result. So I'm going to go open parentheses 20 squared plus the 15 squared minus the 8.3 squared, close parenthesis, divided by open parenthesis, 2 times 40 times 15, close parenthesis. We get that, and then I'm going to go second cosine my answer, and I get A to be 62.4 degrees. This is 62.4. Now at this point, I can use cosine again. I'm going to let you guys finish it off and see what values you get, and that's the end of the podcast.